everybody. My name is Paul Epi from the 11th Inning Stretch. My usual co-host, Alex Schneider, is not joining me this week. He's out on vacation. He's enjoying himself in Florida, sitting on the beach and enjoying his time with his family and friends. Alex, if you are listening to this, I am jealous of you. I wish you safe travels home, and I will see you in August. I am going to discuss the future of the show and what the show is going to look like later on towards the end of the program. But Alex will be here in studio for the vast majority of the summer. I'm going to be out, but again, I'll get to that later, and we'll see how it goes. But it is just me today. I was not able to gather a friend or a guest on the show. So much like you heard from me 2 weeks ago, you're going to be hearing my voice for the next 20, 30 minutes or so. It's going to be a shorter show. Not sure how long in terms of how long the show is going to be, but it'll be just me, and I do have a lot of Cardinal news to discuss, which is good because a lot has happened in the past week, and not all of it has been good. So I do have a lot of thoughts. So let's jump right into it. The first big news coming out, I believe it was last Saturday when Stephen Piscotty was activated from the DL, was that the Cardinals traded Matt Adams to the Atlanta Braves. In return, the Cardinals got a 19-year-old Venezuelan. His name is Juan Yepez. He's projected to be a first baseman, but right now he's a third baseman. At least Atlanta put him as a third baseman before he was traded to the Cardinals organization. And that is the big news coming out of Cardinals camp, at least since our last show on Friday. I wish Alex was here to discuss this with me, because we have been saying on this show for quite a while that it's kind of only a matter of time until Matt Adams gets traded, because he just doesn't have a spot on the team. And we were a little surprised, at least I was, he wasn't traded before the season started, because we all knew coming in that Matt Carpenter was going to be your first baseman. Matt Adams was going to be your backup, and you also have, a Jed Jerko who can play first, even a Stephen Piscotty who's played first before too. So I was a little surprised he wasn't traded before the season started, but I didn't expect him to be traded in the middle of May, in late May. And I expected him to be traded more at the trade deadline, because there's always a team that could use a bench piece, a power bench piece, and the Cardinals have that. I mean, he's one of the better pinch hitters that we've seen in quite some time, and teams can always use bench pieces, especially contenders. Contenders can always use, at the trade deadline, bullpen arms and bench pieces. And I'm a little surprised, personally, that the Cardinals did not get more out of this trade. I don't disagree with him being traded. It's more of a I wish the Cardinals got more out of the trade, and here's why. Again, he is a power bench piece. I get that he's sort of stuck at one position. He's not a utility guy. He's going to be playing first base. Forget about him playing outfield. That's just not going to happen. That was an experiment that never worked itself out. It was really never meant to be. Again, I don't disagree with him being traded. We expected it kind of coming into the season. But I wish the Cardinals got more, because the Braves, as we all know, lost Freddie Freeman. I guess it was about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago now. And they needed a first baseman. Freddie Freeman is an all-star, and if you don't have him over at first, you're kind of screwed, and the Braves were. But the problem is that the Braves aren't a contender. And they don't really have any playoff aspirations this season. I get that they're in second place in the NL East, but the Nationals have a 8-game lead or whatever it is on May 26th. The Braves, they didn't have to overpay. They can just sort of throw out a minor leaguer, and the Cardinals took him. And a contender, say a Nationals or a Giants or an Orioles, if they have an injury like this happen to them and they want to fill that hole, they would need to overpay because they're contending. They need to fill that spot quick and they need to be efficient at it. So think of like the Nationals coming in or during the offseason. They had a black hole over in center field. And they got Adam Eaton, but they also gave up a ton for Adam Eaton. They knew coming into the season that they were going to be contenders and that if they have to make a move, they're probably going to have to overpay. Am I comparing Matt Adams to Adam Eaton? No, I'm not. But I think the same concept applies. The Braves aren't going anywhere this season, so they don't have to overpay. They don't really care who they throw out there. And in return, the Cardinals got Juan Yepez. Again, projected to be a first baseman. I saw some places had him ranked 30 on the Braves prospect list. Some places had him ranked 35. So really not all that high of a prospect. But again, he is only 19 years old. And he might be one of those Cardinal-type players where if they just get him in the system and have him grow from a young age, it might work out for him. And maybe he will play in the major leagues. I don't know. But my guess is that if you're the 35th ranked prospect, maybe you will see some playing time, but probably not going to be all that much. When he was converted over to third base this season for the Braves low A team, he's committed eight errors so far this season, so his defense seems to be a little suspect. And again, he is 19 years old, so I'm not going to be quick to judge him because he's my age, to be honest. So plenty of growing time, and we've seen that with a guy like Aledmus Diaz, who's a lot older. His defense is a work in progress, and it's going to have to get better over time. And I get that. That's fine. But I can only judge based off of what I've seen so far, and I just don't know if he's going to be playing in the major leagues anytime soon. So we'll see. Back to Matt Adams, though. I get that for the Cardinals, he wasn't going to get very much playing time at all, and he's gotten almost no playing time. I think before he was traded, I saw a stat that he has like 14 at-bats in the month of May. That's nothing. I mean, he is an expendable piece. And the Cardinals, it's actually funny because the Cardinals needed a roster spot for Stephen Piscotty. And usually you don't see teams trade guys to open up that roster spot, but that's what the Cardinals did. But the problem is, shouldn't having a left-handed power bat off the bench like him, isn't that a luxury? And maybe I'm giving Matt Adams too much credit, but I kind of liked him. I mean, I'd rather have him over Johnny Peralta on the bench. I didn't see any urgency from the Cardinals to trade him. I feel like the Cardinals should have, maybe milk the market a little bit more. And I'm not saying he should, we should all have a bidding war over how good Matt Adams is, because again, he's not the best thing since sliced bread. I understand that. But I wish the Cardinals, could have maybe milked the market a little more and maybe gotten a little more out of him. My second issue with the trade is that the Cardinals agreed to eat some of Matt Adams' salary. That's awfully generous, isn't it? Matt Adams is getting paid $2.8 million this season. I was not able to find out how much the Cardinals eat of that $2.8 million. But it just seems awfully generous to be paying his salary too. That's kind of like a insult to injury type thing for me. Why not wait till the trade deadline? A contender will most certainly need a bat. Again, bullpen arms, bench bats are usually very sought after pieces at the trade deadline. Think Zach Duke last year. He was not on anybody's trade list, and out of nowhere the Cardinals got him. And I feel like Matt Adams could have been sort of the same thing. I guarantee you the Orioles, the Rockies, the Giants, the Nationals, pick your contender. I guarantee you, they would be that they would give up a bullpen arm, be it maybe AAA or Major League ready, for Matt Adams. And that brings me to my next point. We're going to move on from the Matt Adams thing for now. The Cardinals bullpen is it's getting tough to watch, folks. I don't want to beat a dead horse because, again, we've talked a lot about the Cardinals bullpen on this show, but there's two guys in particular that have been making me angry, and I think you might know who those two guys are, and that would be, of course, Brett Cecil and Jonathan Broxton. I'm going to address both of them fairly quickly. Brett Cecil, the Cardinals signed him to a 5-year deal of how many millions of dollars in the offseason, and I'd say we were all fairly confident. It's like, it's Brett Cecil's not gonna light the world on fire, but he's a solid guy to put in the bullpen. No one's gonna complain about him. Well, so far this season, he's just been awfully dreadful. 5.06 ERA, 1.88 WHIP. He's not striking very many guys out. He's just a lot of runs, obviously, with the 5.06 ERA. And clearly, I think Mike Matheny knows that he can't trust Brett Cecil because he's only pitched 2 innings in the past 7 days. But he pitched on I believe it was Tuesday night. It was either Tuesday night or Wednesday night of the Dodgers series. And Cecil came in it was Thursday night. Cecil came in and I believe it was the 5th inning. And the game was still close at that point. And I was just thinking to myself, why are we putting Cecil in a situation where there's a close game? Because he's shown no tendency to get guys out when it's close or not close. He can't get guys out in general. So why are we putting him in this close game? That was the first time in, I think, a while that Matheny has put him in at least a decently high leverage situation. But the Cardinals paid him so much money that you almost have to put him in, don't you? Into high leverage situations. You can't just release him. You can't just not pitch him because you sunk so much money into the ship that you almost have to put him out there. And that's the depressing part for me. You remember last season when Ubaldo Jimenez came in at the Orioles-Blue Jays wild card game? You just knew he was going to blow it. That's kind of the same way I feel with Brett Cecil. With Jonathan Broxton, though, and he's the more perplexing case because you kind of have to stick with Cecil. You don't have to stick with Jonathan Broxton because he is in the last year of his contract, and he hasn't pitched well since middle last season. I mean, it's the same thing with Broxton as it is with Cecil. When he goes out there, you just know he's going to give up runs. A 6.28 ERA, 13 strikeouts in over 2 WHIP. You just know he's going to go out and give up runs. I don't know why the Cardinals don't get rid of him, drop him, because you just eat his remaining contract and bring up a guy from Memphis. And my answer to the whole Jonathan Broxton situation, at least, is Marco Gonzalez. Marco Gonzalez we drafted a couple of years ago. I think it was 2012, 2013, maybe 2013. And he's had a lot of injury history over the past 3 to 4 years. Most recently, Tommy John last season. That's what he was out all of last year because of Tommy John. But he's back with Memphis right now, and he's pitching quite well. Look, I'm pulling up his stats right now, so pardon the silence. But he has a 2.89 ERA in 18 innings pitched, 15 strikeouts, 1.1 WHIP. I mean, you can't possibly tell me that you would rather have Jonathan Broxton come walking out of that bullpen over Marco Gonzalez. Again, we've been beating this dead horse for a while, and I'm tired of talking about the bullpen. I'm tired of complaining about it. I don't know what the answer is for Cecil. Do you just wait to when there's a blowout game, when it's 10-0, do you just throw Cecil out there and have him eat innings? Is that what you essentially paid for him now? I don't know what the answer is. I'm glad I don't get paid to make those decisions. Broxton, I think you just have to drop. You just straight up drop him. So, I don't know. And I was asked on Facebook this week by Luke. Luke, thank you for submitting this question. What would it take to upgrade our bullpen? My answer for you is I have no idea. I would assume his question is geared toward if the Cardinals go out at the trade deadline and try and find a bullpen piece. What would the Cardinals need to give up? What would a name look like? And there are multiple names that might be out there at the trade deadline. Most notably, across the state over in Kansas City, Kelvin Herrera, the closer for the Royals, is a big name. He's a shutdown closer. I mean, he throws 100 miles an hour too. Also, you have possibly Roberto Ozuna from the Blue Jays. If the Blue Jays are out of it, they might look to start selling guys off. Another name might be A.J. Ramos from the Marlins. Same thing. If they're not in remote contention, they might look to sell guys off. But I don't think the answer for the Cardinals is to find a ninth inning guy. Those are all great ninth inning guys. The Cardinals don't need that. Sangwon and Trevor Rosenthal, I think, are pitching pretty darn well. If you told me coming into the season that Trevor Rosenthal was going to be throwing 101 miles an hour, I'd call you crazy. The Cardinals need a more 6th, 7th inning guy. A guy who can fill in for Broxton and Brett Cecil. But I don't know what that looks like because typically you don't see guys, big name, 7th inning relievers. You only hear about them when they are traded. We did not hear about Zach Duke until he was traded from the White Sox to the Cardinals. So I don't know. I mean, an answer could come from literally any team. But I don't see why you can't try some pieces over in Memphis first. So, speaking of Zach Duke, I found this story very interesting this past week. He's probably coming back this season. Coming into the season, everyone pretty much wrote him off. He had his arm surgery done for 2017. The Cardinals kind of wasted a trade last trade deadline. But no, he's coming. He might be coming back. So I did a tiny little research into it. Again, possibly August, maybe September. He's going to the Cardinals extended spring training on May 27th, tomorrow. And he might be working his way back, apparently. Build up that arm strength, pitch to some live batters, go out on a rehab stint, might be joining the team again. And that would be a welcome sight. Again, I don't think Zach Duke is going to be lighting the world on fire, but the Cardinals need all the help they can get. And if they get Zach Duke back from an injury, I don't see what's wrong with that. Okay, moving on. I don't have any particular league news to discuss It's been a slow week in league news. I don't think it's kind of sad when you don't have brawls and throwing at batters' heads to talk about, because that's usually a wealth of information. But none of that happened this week, and it's going to shorten the show up a little bit. And this show is much more Cardinal based than in recent shows. But one thing I do want to discuss that I guess you could categorize under league news, and I'm going to be also previewing the next series here, is the Colorado Rockies. I've seen a lot of people this week be surprised at how good the Rockies are. Now, I'm not one to brag too much, but Alex and I both said on this show about a week before the season started, the Rockies are our sleeper pick. And pardon me while I go back into my show notes here, but I believe I had them as a wild card spot. So why are we all? I'm not surprised one bit. So, and I did not have the Rockies as a wild card spot, but I literally had written in my notes: Cardinals 1 wild card, Giants the second wild card, and then number 3, Rockies not far behind. And we spent a couple of minutes explaining how good we think the Rockies are going to be. Well, lo and behold, May 26th, guess who's in first place? Your Colorado Rockies. And it's very surprising because the Rockies are doing it with their pitching more than their hitting. The Rockies historically, at least in the past 10 years or so, they usually have a very good offense and a garbage rotation. That's not the case this season. And that's what makes them scary. I want to go through their current pitching rotation. Their ace, John Gray, he's injured. But he is also making his way back fairly soon, possibly sometime in June. Also in their rotation, Tyler Anderson. He's like the oldest guy in their rotation. He's only 27. And he's one of 2 guys in the current Rockies rotation that has an ERA over 4. Usually, their ERAs over in Colorado are just sky high because of that ballpark and the altitude and Coors Field effect. You know the whole story about Coors Field. But he's only one of 2 guys with an over 4 ERA. And right now he's at 5.40. But his last couple starts have also been better. The second guy in their rotation, Tyler Chatwood, also 27 years old. He's a 4.5 ERA. But again, his last couple starts have been better. Now we get to the guys that have really held this rotation together. And there's 3 of them. Or sorry, 2 of them, my bad. There's Kyle Freeland. He's 24 years old. He's his second year in the league. He's a 3.3 ERA, 32 strikeouts, 1.3 whip. And also you have German Marquez. Hopefully I said his name right. 3.8 ERA, 1.3 whip, 30 strikeouts. I'm not sure what the updated numbers are, but I saw a couple of weeks ago that the Rockies rotation had the most strikeouts out of any rotation in Major League Baseball. I'm like, wow. I mean, I can't recall a Rockies team that has had so many strikeouts and allowed so few runs. Now, they're not lighting the world on fire. 3.84 ERAs are good, but they're not great. They're not as good as the Cardinals rotation so far this season. But with the Rockies, they don't need a stellar pitching staff. They just need to keep their ERAs at around or under 4, and they're pretty good, and that should do it. With the offense that they currently have, and I'll get into that, they don't need to go throw 8 shutout innings. Also, I feel like nobody has talked about the move that they made in the offseason to sign Greg Holland. He's leading the league in saves right now. No one's talked about him whatsoever. I believe Casey McGee is their 8th inning guy, and he was the former closer in Tampa Bay. I think it was the closer last year, too, before Holland showed up. But they have an 8th inning and 9th inning guys who are shut down. Their ace is out right now. He's on his way back soon. And this young Rockies pitching staff is holding things together. And let me read off their offense to you. Excuse me again while I pull it up. The internet is being a little slow right now. But they have Charlie Blackmon, who's been setting the world on fire the past week or so. I watched him in Philadelphia. He was jacking home runs left and right. Carlos Gonzalez has had a down year for his standards. I wouldn't be surprised if he starts to heat it up fairly soon. Parra out and left. He's been, looks like, splitting time with Ian Desmond while Ian Desmond has been working his way back. And then their infield is just stellar with Nolan Arenado, your all-star MVP candidate third baseman. Trevor Story, young stud shortstop who he burst onto the scene last season and then got hurt. DJ LeMahieu, another young stud second baseman, great defense, great on-base percentage guy. And the guy I'm particularly interested in is Mark Reynolds over at first base. The former Cardinal, of course. He has been a godsend for the Colorado Rockies this season. 12 home runs, 311 batting average, 39 RBIs, 387 OBP. For comparison, what did he do with the Cardinals back in 2015? He had 13 home runs. He batted .230 with a 315 OBP. Again, you can chalk some of this up to playing in Colorado, but there is absolutely zero doubt that he has had a monumental impact on that Rockies lineup. And good for him. He signed, I believe it was a one-year contract with him this offseason. I'm happy for him. I hope he doesn't do well this weekend against the Cardinals, but it's kind of fun to watch him jack home runs because he can hit them pretty far, and Colorado allows 4 hitters to hit baseballs from 500 feet because of the altitude. So where am I going with this? Well, the Cardinals play in Colorado tonight, tomorrow, and Sunday, and this leads me into the preview for this weekend. The starters for Friday, another one of the young Rockies arms that I actually forgot to mention, Antonio Senzatella. He's 22. He has a 3.6 ERA and a 1.2 WHIP. And at home, he's pitching with a 3.7 ERA and a 1.2 WHIP. Saturday's game is going to be Kyle Freeland. I mentioned him as well. Kyle Freeland versus Adam Wainwright. Friday's starter for the Cardinals tonight is Carlos Martinez, by the way. So you have Senzatella versus Martinez on Friday, Kyle Freeland versus Adam Wainwright on Saturday, and then, German Marquez versus Lance Lynn on Sunday. Injury report for the Colorado Rockies, really only one injury of note, and that is John Gray, their ace. Again, he's not due back this series, so it doesn't really impact the Cardinals. But just know that the Rockies will be getting their ace back within the next month or so. Also, David Dahl, their young stud outfielder, he has been out, I believe it is the entire season, if not the entire season, the vast majority of the season. He might be back for the Cardinals series. I'm not seeing anything indicating that he is. But if you see him in the lineup, don't be surprised because I'm reading that he'll be back in late May, and it's late May. Player to watch for the Rockies. You could name a lot of people. Greg Holland, Charlie Blackmon's hot, Nolan Arenado, their MVP. But again, I mean, I got to go with Mark Reynolds just because he's the former Cardinal. I like the narrative, and he's hitting just extremely well. Extremely well. Player to watch for the Cardinals. I'm going to go Dexter Fowler. He has been bad so far this season. And it's kind of making me wonder, is he injured? He doesn't look all that comfortable making throws out in center field. I understand that he has never had the strongest arm on the planet, but there are some throws that he should have made. I forget the exact date and time, but there was a play out in center where he was playing fairly shallow, and he came in and caught the ball, and the runner on third tagged up, and he couldn't get the ball to Molina. And it's just like, it doesn't matter if you have a strong arm when you're playing shallow. I mean, it would help, but a mediocre arm should be able to get the ball from shallow center field to Yadier Molina. And it happened to Fowler twice. He just has not looked comfortable out in center field, and he has not looked great at all at the plate. I saw a stat today that he's now batting, I think, a $197 or something in the leadoff spot this season. It's pretty tough to watch. He's batting .205 on the season with a .302 OBP. We signed him to be an OBP guy. His career OBP is .364. That's pretty good. A 300 or below OBP is not very good. And he's hovering right around that 300 mark for the season. Think of OBP like this. You know how in batting average, that if you're batting below the Mendoza line 200, you're not that great of a hitter. Maybe you can jack home runs like a Chris Carter or Chris Davis, but you're not going to be hitting singles and doubles into the gap. A 300 OBP is sort of like a 200 batting average. You want to be above 300. And Fowler's at 302 right now. I'm kind of curious, is he hurt? You know, he has not looked good at all this season. He had a hot stretch about 2 weeks ago for a couple of games, and then he sort of faded off again. So what's up with Dexter Fowler? I want to see him perform. Finally, moving on. The Los Angeles Dodgers come to St. Louis Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It's a 4-game set. And the Cardinals drew a very lucky stick, in my opinion, because they don't face Clayton Kershaw for the second time in a week. Clayton Kershaw pitches on Sunday against the Cubs. So we don't get to face Kershaw, which is just a blessing, in my opinion. So the pitching matchups are on Monday. It's a 1:15 start. I guess Monday, Memorial Day, they want to play some afternoon baseball. Mike Leake versus Rich Hill. Tuesday night, Michael Wacha versus Kenta Maeda. Wednesday is Carlos Martinez versus Alex Wood, who's had a fantastic season so far. And Thursday, final game of the set, is going to be Adam Wainwright versus Brandon McCarthy. Player to watch for the Dodgers, I'm going to go Alex Wood. He got, I believe, NL Player of the Month award or Player of the Week award. He got one of those awards fairly recently. And when I saw that notification come across my phone, I was like, is he had that great of a season? So I looked him up, and yes, he has that. He has had that great of a season. 1.8 ERA, 1.0 WHIP, 52 strikeouts, 5-0 record. Kershaw's been their ace. Alex Wood has been their number 2. So I'm kind of curious. So Wednesday's matchup, Carlos Martinez, Alex Wood, is actually going to be very, very good. Player to watch for the Cardinals? Let's go with Stephen Piscotty. He came back from injury about a week ago, and he has not done really anything. It would be very nice to see him start to heat up sometime soon. He's only batting .220 on the season. The past 7 days since he's come back, he's hit 158. So he's in a rut right now. I'd like to see him turn it on. There are multiple guys in this Cardinals lineup right now that if or when they finally get going, this lineup is truly going to be dangerous. And I don't mean get hot for 2 or 3 games. I mean get hot for 2 or 3 weeks. Why can't Dexter Fowler do that? Why can't Steven Piscotty do that? I mean, my gosh, Piscotty's hitting in your 4 or 5 hole every night. You expect him to drive in runs. He has not done that so far this season. Granted, he has been hurt. I understand that. But even before he got hurt, he wasn't really doing that. So I'm going to go Steven Piscotty for the Cardinals. That is it for today's show. I do want to discuss a couple of other small items. I'm going through my notes to make sure that I did not miss anything, and I don't think I did. As we've talked about for the past couple of weeks, I am leaving tomorrow, Saturday, May 27th, for New York City. I got a internship up there for the summer, and I am driving up there, and I will be there for the summer. And so, yeah. And we've talked about this for a while. And Alex, while he's not here today, he is going to be back next week, and he will be here for the vast majority of the summer. I don't know what his schedule is, but if he's in town, I would assume he'll be doing shows here. So what is this show going to look like throughout June and July and part of August? Well, unfortunately for those of you who hate my voice, that doesn't, just because I'm not here does not mean I'm not going to be on the show. Thankfully, lineupmedia.fm has good technology capabilities, and I can just Skype in whenever I want. So on days that I'm not working, and times that I'm not working, when we shoot a show here on Friday afternoons, I can Skype in, and it's just going to be a typical show that you've heard ever since January when we started here. On days that I am working, unfortunately, obviously, I won't be able to just call in from work and talk about baseball for an hour. So Alex is going to have friends on the show. He's going to have guests on the show, like we did last week when his friend Nate came in, and we had a fantastic discussion about baseball. And if you haven't listened to last week's show, by the way, go give it a listen, because I think we had a very good discussion about umpiring and just, do umpires affect the outcome of the game? We just got into a general discussion about the current state of umpiring in Major League Baseball and where things stand, and I thought it was a very, very good discussion. So Alex will have guests on the show. I am still going to be here. I'm still going to be running the Twitter account at 11 Inning Stretch. You'll still see me occasionally on Facebook Live and Periscope on Twitter. So I will, while I'm not going to be physically present in the studio, and when I Skype in, it may not sound as professionally done as I sound right now. This show's still not going anywhere. And we encourage you, as always, to submit your questions, submit your comments, interact with us on YouTube, interact with us on Facebook and Twitter. We are always here. So even though I will not physically be here, that does not mean that I'm going to be just falling off the face of the earth. One final note is I do want to give you our Facebook and Twitter information at 11 Inning Stretch on Twitter, 11 Inning Stretch on Facebook. Again, you can interact with us however you feel like. We do appreciate all of that. That is it for today's show. I do apologize if the discussion wasn't as in depth as you might have liked, because I don't have a co-host here this week, so I'm sort of on my own in terms of getting together information, and I can just give you my opinion. I can't speak for anybody else. But next week, you will hear Alex's voice again. I'm not sure if you'll hear mine because I haven't looked at my work schedule yet. But I am signing off for now. I will be back to the Lineup Media studios here in August when I get back from New York City. Alex, Again, if you're listening to this, I hope you have a safe return home. I hope you enjoyed your vacation, because I would have loved to sit on the beach all week. I'm pretty jealous. So Alex will be here next week. You will still hear from me. Today is May 26th. Happy Memorial Day weekend, everybody. Please do enjoy it. We will be back next week with another show. Until then, have a great weekend, and thank you for listening.